Welcome to the Dr. Gundry podcast. So you can't miss scrolling every day on the internet. I did such and such for 30 days, and this is what happened. And it's kind of cute and gets your attention. So I thought I'd try today something like that. What would happen if you took vitamin D for 30 days in a row? First of all, let's start with the obvious. You should take vitamin D every day. Not just 30 days in a row, but every day. Now, here's why. Vitamin D is actually not a vitamin. It is actually a hormone. And with every passing year in research, we're beginning to realize that this hormone does a whole lot of important things. And I've written about this in a number of my books. First of all, here in Southern California, about 80% of people who walk into my office as new patients are vitamin D deficient, have low levels of vitamin D. And you go, how can that be? It's Southern California. It's always sunny, although it's cloudy outside today. Why is that? Well, we're so afraid of the sun in Southern California that, of course, we lather on the sunscreen and we wear hats and long sleeves to, protect ourselves from evil sunshine. And that's a big part of it. Plus, I take care of a number of patients who have darker colored skin. And as you might suspect, that's a natural sunscreen. In fact, a study out of Brooklyn a number of years ago, the black population of Brooklyn, only 8% had a normal vitamin D level in Brooklyn. Okay, so what? Well, first of all, vitamin D is essential for improving the biodiversity of your gut microbiome. What the heck does that mean? Your gut microbiome consists of thousands of different species of bacteria, fungi, viruses, and it's very akin to a tropical rainforest. And just like a tropical rainforest, the more diverse the population, the more stable that ecology is, and the better it functions. There's good guys and bad guys, and they're all dependent on each other. And the good guys keep the bad guys in check, the bad guys keep the good guys in check. And it turns out that the higher your vitamin D level, the more diverse your microbiome. And as you learned in Gut Check or in the gut-brain paradox, the more diverse your microbiome, the healthier you are. Number two, as you probably know, the lining of your gut is at least the surface area of a tennis court, probably 2 tennis courts, and it's only 1 cell thick. To give you an idea, that's thinner than a human hair. So this huge surface area, the cell thickness is 1 cell thick, and it's constantly under attack by lectins, by LPSs, by some of the foods that we eat, and this layer is damaged. Now, in the wall of our gut, we have stem cells that when a cell is damaged, the stem cell wakes up and grows to replace that damaged cell. And this should go on constantly. It turns out that vitamin D is essential to wake that stem cell up, to literally tell it, hey, we've got a problem, start growing into another intestinal cell and close the gap that got damaged. Without vitamin D, what I've seen in my patients is those stem cells just sit there and twiddle their thumbs and go, what do you want me to do? So vitamin D pushes the stem cell into action. And that's one of the reasons why virtually every patient with autoimmune disease who comes to see me, and about 80% of my practice is autoimmune patients, they all have very low levels of vitamin D. They can't repair their gut wall. Number 3, on a similar subject, we now know that vitamin D basically teaches the immune system about how reactive it ought to be to threats. And normally, vitamin D tells an overactive immune system, hey, calm down, things aren't as bad as you think they are, and just relax, calm down. Now, we know that this is normally supposed to happen. Vitamin D is a brake on an overactive immune system. But what's interesting in autoimmune research is that our immune cells in autoimmune disease don't listen to vitamin D very well. And as I tell my patients, we've got to hit them over the head with a sledgehammer of vitamin D to get them to calm down. Now, the fourth thing that I've learned, and I'll give you an example of that in just a second. Early on, I mean 25 years ago, when I first started doing this, we didn't have any measurements of leaky gut, intestinal permeability that we have now. But one of the first things I noticed early on was that people with autoimmune disease had very low levels of vitamin D. And because I check vitamin D levels every 3 months in most of my patients, I noticed that particularly people with autoimmune disease needed a lot of vitamin D to get their vitamin D levels high. Now, what's high? First of all, let's get rid of the notion that vitamin D is toxic. The University of California, San Diego, one of the biggest vitamin D research groups in the country, has never seen vitamin D toxicity even at 40,000 international units a day. And they believe that the average American should be taking 10,000 international units of vitamin D3 a day. Now, for those of you who think in micrograms, that's 250 micrograms of vitamin D3 a day. And I certainly concur with that. So where do I want people's vitamin D levels? First of all, Quest, a very large lab, and Cleveland Heart Lab, which is now owned by Quest, believe, and I think they're correct, that a normal vitamin D level is up to and including 150 nanograms per milliliter. Now, most of your well-meaning physicians and healthcare providers were taught that above 80 is toxic, and that's the farthest from the truth. And it's been shown by groups like the University of California, San Diego, that that is not toxic. And that's why labs like Quest, one of the largest laboratories in the country, says, oh, no. Up to 150 is perfectly fine. So I push patients' vitamin D levels to at least 100 to 150. And I'm not happy until we get them up there. It's then that two things happen. First of all, as leaky gut seals, your vitamin D levels at the same dose of vitamin D usually start going up, and we can actually drop down the dose of vitamin D. I'll give you an example from this week. I have a patient who we have been spending about a year trying to get their vitamin D levels above 100. And we're currently on 50,000 international units of D3 a day. And we finally got this patient's vitamin D level above 100. It was actually 109 nanograms per milliliter. And we were celebrating this. And he said, I can't dare tell my regular doctor that I'm on 50,000 a day because he thinks, it's killing me. His calcium is normal. His kidney function is normal. He doesn't have kidney stones. And yet that's the dose for him. Now, that's a big exception. But I certainly have other people with autoimmune disease that will use, and we have to use, 40,000 international units a day. The vast majority of people really don't need any more than 10,000 international units a day. Vast majority. Now, if you're really tiny, if you're 5 foot tall and weigh 100 pounds, that's probably going to be a little too much for you. And through the years, 10,000 is usually the sweet spot for most people. Have I personally ever seen vitamin D toxicity? No, I have not. My whole thinking on vitamin D changed dramatically well over 20 years ago when I saw two new patients who were both in their late 70s, and their vitamin D levels were actually around 270 nanograms per milliliter, 270. And I'm looking at that in shock. And here they are, look completely normal. I'm looking at their other labs. Their kidney function is normal. Their calcium levels are normal. I asked them, any history of kidney stones? And no. In theory, vitamin D toxicity could maybe give you numb fingers and numb toes. And I asked them about that, and they go no. And they say, why are you asking all these questions? And I said, well, it looks like you take a lot of vitamin D. And they said, oh, yeah, it's a longevity hormone. And of course, my eyebrows raised. And they said, why are you so worried? I said, well, from what I've been taught, you ought to be dead from vitamin D toxicity. And the gentleman kind of leans towards me. He said, you don't know much about vitamin D, do you, Sonny? And I said, well, just what I've been taught. And he says, well, maybe you ought to read about it. And like so many things, I compliment my patients for teaching me. And sure enough, I read about it. I read every book, every article, and the guy was right. And if you've read The Longevity Paradox, you know that people who have the highest vitamin D levels live the longest. Now, why is that? Is it the vitamin D itself? Maybe. Is it because vitamin D promotes better gut diversity? Absolutely. Is it because vitamin D helps seal the wall of the gut? Absolutely. Is it because vitamin D keeps the immune system on an even basis? Absolutely. So 20 odd years ago, I learned something very useful from a patient. And they were right. I didn't know much about vitamin D. And so take your vitamin D. It is a longevity hormone. And I can guarantee you, if you take your vitamin D every day, your vitamin D will go up. And that's a good thing. In fact, I love vitamin D so much that we sell it at Gundry MD. We also put vitamin K2 with our vitamin D. I'm so impressed with vitamin D. It's part of our Gundry MD family of supplements.